Good evening and welcome to the October 16th work session of the Baldwinsville Board of Education. Would you please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. And you have the attendance, Kim, we're all set there. I guess they're over there too. So this next is probably the highlight, right? School board recognition. I'm not sure what that's about, but I guess I'll turn it over to Joe to help us out.
Okay. All right, so at this time we would like to thank the Board of Education for their endless support of our students and staff. This week across New York State, the New York State School Boards Association is recognizing this entire week, October 16th through the 20th, as School Board Recognition Week. So we certainly thank the board members for all of their time, effort, and energy that they put into serving our students and staff. Some kind of interesting facts that I was able to pull off the school board website at New York State. There are a total of 5,096 school board seats across New York State. About 2/3 of board members spend approximately 6 hours or more per week on board activities. And as we know from this board, they're at events, they're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and certainly we know that they spend a heck of a lot more than 6 hours a week doing the work to help us continue moving forward. So on behalf of the administration, faculty, and staff, we do want to say thank you for all of your effort and energy that you put into supporting our students. We have a recognition window, or a recognition video that I'm going to have Renee pull up, and we'll play that video. The link's on the website for the general public, but this really sums up what we think. So what you have in front of you, and those board members that are attending remotely this evening, we'll get them later when they're here for the special meeting. We do have a gift that was put together from students at Baker High School, so we'd ask that you take a moment to open it up. When you see what you have, it actually comes from wood that was on the site of this transportation center. So some cherry that was cut down from trees here before we actually went through and worked through the project. So for those of you that can't see, there's an engraved box that has a pen that our students created and a nice little thank you note on behalf of them. So I know it's not much, but I think it's more meaningful coming from the students, and again, we can't thank you enough for all that you do for our students and staff.
Well, thank you. That was very special, very nice. What is Administrative Appreciation Week, do you know?
So
We don't. It actually is Boss's Day
It's
today,
Boss's
believe it or
Day.
not. which
Oh,
is-
it's Boss's Day.
Yeah, they forgot to bring in the card for Joe.
And the card, they won't let me get it.
Well, I think it is a labor of love, but I believe every board member would say, and we do appreciate the support and everything that the administrators and teachers do for these students, so thank you very much. And with that, we move on to our strategic action plan presentation. I think you have the floor again, Joe.
Yeah, so actually I'm going to turn things over to our secondary building principals. We're going to have Renee pull up each of the strategic plans. We have the success planning guide, so this year you'll notice some difference in what we've done. We've tried to tie all of the work to the strategic plan and the board goals. So what the principals are going to do today, based on the work of their team, they're going to try to focus in on the short-term goals that they're working through right now to help us achieve those long-term goals that are tied to our strategic plan. Danielle is here in case there's any additional questions that come up with our data dashboard. Christine is here representing obviously the secondary directors, and Renee, Carrie, Dave, Kim, and myself if there's additional questions. So hopefully this turns into a great discussion. We're going to take this goal by goal. So we'll first start with Mike with goal number 1 over Ray Middle School, then TJ, then Chris, and then we'll go back to Mike for goal 2, etc. So we'll kind of work our way through and just open it up for questions once they've had an opportunity to give you a little bit of an update.
Thank you, Joe. So goal number 1 is exemplified.
Use the mic. Mic.
So goal number 1.
Yeah, then you got to turn it on.
Should we start over with guest list?
There you go. So goal number 1.
There you
Just to
go.
get the mic on. The mic is on now, but exemplify cultural responsiveness, diversity, and equity. We were excited that this wasn't part of the strategic plan and a focus area because in the recent years, the movement, the work that the district's been doing. At Ray Middle School, how does that look? Well, this summer, our DEI committee and other buildings, DEI committee, had the opportunity to attend a conference at Lemoyne College. And one of the big takeaways there in the 2-day conference was for us here at Ray, this is speak up at school, responding to everyday prejudice, really a guide or template for educators. And I know Mrs. Morgan was in the room with me also, and when I first heard the presenters talking about this tool specifically, I thought this is just great for all of the kind of wild things that middle schoolers just say on a day-to-day basis. But I know that the handout or the link shows you how the tool is used, but it's a foldable piece that has been presented to all of our teachers in our opening department meetings. And it's really a tool for our teachers to, when they hear something that maybe isn't appropriate, maybe is racist, maybe is just a little bit wild, to interrupt the question, the educate, or the echo. And what I liked about this was it named these great actions that educators are doing and intervening to help kids, our students, teach, learn, and grow. So that's been a successful piece and a rollout. Also, this year we were able to create some, with the work of our building leadership team and our administrative team, also create some great Ray values, student and staff norms that are posted around the building. Not only in our teachers' room, our conference room, so parents and families who do come in to take a look, they see those at our conferences. So do we want to pull those up? I'm not sure who has the, thank you, Renee. So a phrase that we've coined the Ray way here, and really these 4 P's of being respectful, responsible, and kind and such, and down the line, and safe. Those 4 areas, we are modeling how those look for students and how they look and sound for adults also too. So those have been good conversations with our students and with staff members in the building, which we think really speaks to the responsiveness piece. Also ongoing, finally, our monthly student advisory and social emotional learning sessions. We last year started our student advisory, and this year we're targeting those 5 areas of SEL growth. I don't know if you've seen on Parent Square some thought exchange feedback from the community members, but that's a piece that we've been building with feedback from the community and our teachers also. So we feel like those 3 action steps are doing a great job moving us forward to achieve our goals in that area.
Can you give us more specifics? I mean, is there any like classroom time spent on these values, or what do you do in what would you call the student, your
The advisory. That's a great, and I'll start with that first question about the classroom time or building student values. These were touched on. We meet at the beginning of the year. The administrative team meets with all 835 grade students, and these were talked about, modeled there, but then also during lunch periods reinforced with students also too. So it's a piece that teachers have in their classrooms. They connect them to their own classroom norms also about maybe group work, about operating in that classroom community. So we thought those 4 points of respectful, responsible, safe, and kind were universal enough that all classrooms could be touching on those. So that's how that piece looks. To the advisory, that's a good question. We have 10 advisory sessions this school year, 1 every month. And the 5 areas, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. So once a month, we run an advisory schedule, which gives us the first 40 minutes of the day, teachers working with those lessons with their homeroom students. So those lessons have been built out by our teacher team, our SEL team, for those 40 minutes, targeting those areas, giving those kids time in each of those. So that's a little bit how that advisory looks.
Thank you.
Just one quick question. I was looking at the virtual workshops that were available for teachers through this program. If any of your teachers or staff attend that in the future, if you could just report on how they went. I know they're coming up with teachers.
This year, are you with the Speak Up at School, the virtual stuff that's available? Absolutely, there'll be follow-up on that.
Thank you.
We can put anything from Mike, if it's not in their communication to the whole school community, we can make sure we put it in the Friday letter at some point.
What was your biggest takeaway from the thought exchange?
From the SEL thought exchange, number 1, as a parent with teenagers, it was a big sigh of relief. Because all of those 97 contributors were saying and thinking things that I, as a father, was thinking about my own kids and their SEL development also too. I think it was unique how the tone and the concern was markedly different from 6th grade families to 7th grade families. With, we're a split building, and it is unique, and we kind of felt that also with what the 7th grade families wanted their students to cue in on. It was device-minded, maybe in how, the use of technology is limiting their ability to socially interact in more natural ways. We saw that a little bit more at the 7th grade versus the 6th grade piece.
Can't believe the days come where I have to put these on.
At Durkee, to meet this goal of the cultural responsiveness, diversity, and equity, our biggest thing that we're working on this year is a sense of belonging by all students. We did have a plan rolled out, putting a survey out to our staff, but now with the district going to the thought exchange, running things through this thought exchange, we put a halt on that survey. We're going to now use the thought exchange to do that, which I'm going to be trained in here in the next week. Thanks, Danielle. The biggest thing is, as I said, is we're working on, we want everybody to feel like they belong at Durkee Junior High School. One way that we're doing this is we started a student leadership committee 2 years ago. Last year, when we were about ready to put this back into place, 2 years ago, Jen Medwid helped us when she was doing her internship, and we got a good group of students that we got a lot of good feedback from those students. We wanted to continue that after Jen went on to Baker. When our first meeting happened to be 2 days after one of the events that happened at Durkee last year, so they kind of got put on the back burner. But this year it's one of the big goals that we are going to implement. And one way we're going to do that, we're going to use B time. Our B time we have set up where all our 8th graders are in an 8th grade B time, all of our 9th graders are in a 9th grade B time. This year we split those in the building, so it's a half and half during that day, so we can do different activities if needed. We're gonna look for student representation from the B time, so that gives a chance for everyone in the school to have a chance to have input. I would like to do is just have like when I was in school, it was your student government. You had representatives from each homeroom. That's what I would like to do, is have representatives from each homeroom. When we did this prior, we just asked the people that were interested, and sometimes you get the student, not everybody wants to be part of that. So hopefully we can get more interest and more of a say, or all the students will have more of a say by using this model. That covered the next two. And then we also, through our events last year, one thing that we looked at that we made sure the kids were taken care of. That's first and foremost, that's our job. And we did a great job as a district. I think as a building, I think we did a great job making sure the students were taken care of. One of the other part that I think we left off on a little bit, and we took for granted, is some of our staff and the trauma that they went through during that time. Because my staff would probably say you don't have to worry about us because they all feel they got into this profession to take care of the children, but at the same time, we recognize that. And we did have a lady from Fayetteville Mann Lakes that was given to us. Her name was given to us by General Claire, who happened to sit through a presentation. She came back and said, TJ, this would be a great resource for us. I passed that on last year. It was Renee. Kind of got, I wanted to do it as a building, but it was one of those things that maybe the whole district all of our teachers could benefit from. So that was the last part that we're looking at, is taking care of our teachers and the trauma that they've gone through.
Good evening, everybody.
Are we doing questions at the end?
Questions on that?
I'll start by just recognizing the 3 team members I have behind me here: Jen Turpinning, Jen Medwood, and Maggie McRavi-Taru, the assistant principals up at Baker. Baker's a big place, a busy place, and all of the things that we do on a daily basis are supported through that team effort, and those 3 back there are just phenomenal. So I want to thank them. And with regards to our goals, specifically the focus goal of exemplifying cultural responsiveness, diversity, and equity, there's a few things that we're working on at Baker. I feel like it's something that is a constant priority for us. We're always working very closely with the students to try and come up with different ideas and different approaches. And one of the things that we really felt was important was we wanted to start by offering this year lunch groups, starting with a grief support group. And then we have our counseling and support team that are currently in the process of developing a schedule where all throughout the year there will be various topics that counselors feel comfortable with, that they will be doing monthly lunch groups to support students. The other thing that we felt was really a highlight was the fact that we are working with the Social Studies Department to propose an African American Studies course using the AP, the College Board AP curriculum. And that has actually been submitted. The course proposal has been submitted. That's something that we hope to be able to add to the catalog. We thought that really having curriculum and coursework that is reflective of our population, and also giving students an opportunity to have appropriate instruction and curriculum in areas of diversity was really important. I think we also have talked a little bit about the potential for us having a women's study course, and I haven't seen the proposal for that yet, but I know that it's something that is in the works. And then one of the other things that we thought was simple, we kind of took a play out of Durgee's playbook. They did something very cool, which was a very simple thing where they invested in hanging flags of different nations, just so that when people come to the building, they feel that there is a sense of welcome and a sense of inclusiveness for different cultural backgrounds. And so what we're doing is we're doing something similar. We're in the process of actually ordering flags. We sent a survey out as part of our Virtual Times newsletter to try and get families the opportunity to share what countries that their countries of origin, where their families come from, and what flags they would like to see at Baker High School. We've gotten some response from that, but we essentially are going to start ordering flags and hang them in our entry vestibule as a way to welcome community members and represent their countries of origin. And then we've also said that by the end of November of this year that we would also work to develop a thought exchange focused on giving students the opportunity to express their feelings about sense of belonging, to give the students an opportunity to share their thoughts on that.
I think that's a great idea to have a support group. And can you assess interest in that? Are kids willing to get around and talk about some of these issues? I mean, it may be a great source to talk about.
I think it would be amazing after everything that has happened in regards the losses that the district had faced and how much it affected the student body. I mean, it affected everybody when we were going through these, when the losses happened, and I know it affected teachers and parents as well. And so I know it's important. It may take a minute for students to become familiar with it. Some students may be nervous to talk about their feelings or talk about the grief or how it impacted them. So it may be slow at first, how I see it, but I think eventually students will become not used to it, but they will warm up to the idea, and even then I think students will appreciate, even if they don't need it, they'll appreciate the fact that there is a support group there if they would need it for some reason. No matter what happened, I think just students knowing that they have that support is just, it's important, and it would make, I know a lot of students feel happy that they have that.
Yeah, and Maya, I think that we're in a good place with it. I think you're right to say that it might start slowly. I think, and after the support meeting that Mrs. Turpinning and I had with Laura Lang and with Meredith Truly today, that I think there were about 12 to maybe 15 students that participated in September's lunch groups, and really the focus area was on what to do, how to support, friends, classmates, if you think that they're struggling in some way, and that kind of lines up with our teen mental health first aid initiative. But what I think that they expressed is when they finished these lunch group meetings with these students, that they were all pretty much on board with, yeah, I'll be back. They were very interested in it. They found that it was a beneficial support, and I think that this is something that will have legs in the long term for sure. And we're hoping that when we have, they're going to be lined up to do another topic, which I'm not sure exactly what the topic is that they're choosing for the month of October, but they'll probably have a session, I think, next week, and we're hoping that every month that, students start to get more awareness of the opportunity and take advantage of it.
So if there are no further questions, we'll move to the second priority area, which really centers on project-based learning, specifically how we're preparing students to be knowledgeable, critical thinkers, communicators, collaborators, creators, and contributors. And much of the work I know in the Friday letter I shared with the board. It's on our website, the thought exchange that went out to all of our community, really helping us understand and get their perspective about what does project-based learning mean, and what the community is hoping to get out of it, given the fact that it was, one of the priority areas that was highly sought after in the community survey. So I'll turn things over to Mike, and he'll walk through their goal associated and the action steps to this area of priority.
Great, thank you, Joe. Really, our goal is twofold here in the wake of the thought exchange that was conducted by the district to gain an understanding of what does the community or what do we agree on as a working definition for project-based learning. So that thought exchange has happened now by the end of November, which actually will take place October 23rd at the Ray Middle School, our next staff meeting. I'll be presenting these thought exchange results to staff members to start that conversation about what's that agreed upon definition and how does that look in our building. And also on our November 7th conference day, there will be opportunities for staff members to attend some professional development on the Ed Camp Day for project-based learning. The next step too, I see after our staff meeting, surveying our staff, starting to brainstorm with your curriculum right now, with your areas of focus, and knowing this is our working definition of project-based learning. What's one project that you would want to pursue to start to develop in alignment with that definition, with what we're already doing here at Ray Middle School? So my hope is Thought Exchange has a new platform, a survey tool that they're using also that's helpful. That's the tool that we'll use to generate those and kind of start to share feedback with each other and around the district. So those are our two goals at Ray Middle School for that second.
What you'll see with Durkee is, I think the three of us as secondary principals have really come around to the same goal. I'm going to present the thought exchange data, present that at our next faculty meeting as well. I think it's really trying to come up with what that definition of project-based learning, what the community wants that definition to be. Because I think if you ask different people around the building what project-based learning is, you're going to get some different answers, because some of them were here 11 years ago or about 10 years ago when project-based learning, I remember getting on a bus to Indiana and going and seeing these schools that are true project-based learning models. Some people have that, some think it's maybe just making a chair in technology class is project-based learning. There's parts of it in there, but making the chair is not the project-based learning. So I think it's just the education and coming up with that common, the common goal of what we want project-based learning to be. So really, I don't have much to add because I feel that we're on the same page with this. This is the one that we're all going to have to tackle and be on the same page for. Until Chris proves me wrong. Right?
No, I'm going to piggyback on my colleagues here and just say that.
Wayne wants to say something.
No, you're fine. I could have waited till you were done, but I figured I'd jump in before you get. Is there any way, or have you guys thought of any ideas on how to integrate the community or local businesses into the project-based learning process to kind of maybe, I don't know, get more involvement from the community and the growth of that?
That is a component of, that has to happen, right? That is a component of project-based learning, is having the community involvement, having, local businesses that are part of presentations that students are doing on the work that they're doing. Like TJ mentioned, building a chair in, tech class is not the project. That's not necessarily what makes something project-based. There's a whole formula to it. So I really think that where we're at is kind of coming back to the staff and getting them reacquainted, many of them, just like TJ mentioned, reacquainted with what the real definition of project learning is, and also really trying to help our community understand what project-based learning is. I was at the Northern Regional Principals Group meeting last week, and I will tell you, the pendulum swings, right? Now we're at a place where, just as TJ mentioned, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, that BOCES had a very large presence in providing professional development for districts around project-based learning.
And I know that they're already in the process of planning some upcoming professional development, including, I think, a PBL conference that, would be happening either this spring or this coming summer. And I'm sure that that's something that we'll be, exploring with our staff as an opportunity. And as far as Baker is concerned, we started at our building leadership team level, having conversations, starting to kind of get a sense from our building leadership team what staff might need in order to kind of, one, get reacquainted with PBL, but how they might, what supports they might need at some point to be able to provide project-based learning experiences really across every content area.
So one of the things, just to add in, is we reviewed it today. So the curriculum instruction and assessment team has been working on a project-based learning plan for a multi-year rollout, because we know when we talked about this goal as part of our strategic plan, it cannot be done in 1 year. So what does that look like? They just finished up, and we reviewed at cabinet this morning that plan. So I plan to put it in the Friday communication to you, so you have the ability to review that. Hopefully will help make a little bit more, provide more context when the elementary staff comes to present their action plans as part of their review in November. But just to give you an idea, year one, we're really calling that, based on Renee and the team's work, that pilot phase. So, what does that project initiation look like, the training that's required in order for us to do this pilot, the implementation, evaluation and reflection. Then we look at year two, which is really about refining and integrating and making sure that there's that integration within all of our schools, courses and content. So it's expanding PBL implementation, there's ongoing professional development, assessment and evaluation. Then we move into year three, which is focused on that full-scale PBL integration across all schools and grades, ongoing professional development, continued integration, assessment and evaluation. And then year 4 and 5, again, which brings together our strategic plan, is focusing on that project-based learning sustainability. So we know that in order for this to continue, we have to have that full buy-in. So how are we? So we've got a plan, a draft plan that will likely be modified over the course of the next few years, just to help us sustain this, because we don't want to have happen what happened 11, 12 years ago that TJ mentioned, where everyone was gung-ho. We started to move in that direction, and then everybody kind of pulled back. BOCES continue doing their work with their CTE programs and the Innovation Tech and Seven Valleys, and most schools kind of stopped. But we know we can't do that because of the need for preparing kids for careers. And to Wayne's point earlier with the partnerships, that's part of this process, making sure that we have folks a part of that conversation. And then we do have a community cafe scheduled for March that is focused on project-based learning. And so we hope by that point in time, we've got more of our businesses, we've got staff excited about this because it's part of their building level strategic goals, and we can have a really rich conversation that will help drive changes to the implementation plan as we move forward.
So this has kind of gone full circle, I guess, right? Because I remember the bus trip to Indiana. I didn't go, but I know there was a board member too that did. Yeah, Jeff did. And then you just kind of backed off. It seemed like from the survey that the survey takers thought we were a little slow on project. It's okay.
So I think, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say, we're not even using the word 21st century skills anymore. We're referencing them as global skills, because that's really what it's about. Our students have to be able to compete in a, based on our strategic goal, a global world, a global environment. And, they have to be collaborating, they have to be problem solving, they have to be, critical thinkers, they have to be communicators, and all of this ties into this work. And so that's why it's very important, but it's going to take time in order to do this right. So it's exciting for sure.
Yeah.
More to come. And we're going to transition to the third and final goal, which focuses on school safety and security. And when we think about school safety and security, certainly there's the hardening and the work that we're doing with projects and some of the threat detection systems, but it's also about ensuring that students are safe from that social emotional learning component, and that there's the connection to the work with the school resource officers, our social workers, our psychologists. And so I think you'll see a lot of the work that's identified here kind of brings all of that together.
Great, thank you, Joe. And that shared goal, we think is really important. There's a two-sidedness to it: increase school safety and security by supporting mental health opportunities. We were excited to see those blended together. At Ray, how does that look? Well, by the end of December, pilot and anticipated implementation of the Smart Pass digital hall pass system, really on the coattails of the work that Durkee has been doing with TJ and then Chris at Baker and their team rolling that out. We feel it's a safety piece, not only safety and accountability, but a way to direct student services, that we're creating passes with support staff a day ahead of time. Students know that they are going to have that time with their guidance counselor the next day. They're going to have that time with the whatever support staff member it is, and really organizing that in a way that's going to give students that confidence that I'm going to get what I need also too. So we're excited about that. Eric Ziegler is going to be instrumental in helping our leadership team pilot that and come up to speed. On November 7th, he's going to run some PD for our team, and then we'll be rolling that out, a 10-day pilot in December with our leadership team before we present it to the whole school. Secondly, by May, Ray's middle school students and staff will participate in a controlled emergency evacuation offsite that I know that the board is familiar with here, like all other schools. So we hope to have some good success in not only teaching our students and staff, the purpose and how to evacuate Ray in a safe manner, but why we would do that, and build some confidence there also. And lastly, we've completed this goal, but we thought it was an important piece, and we were very pleased to add a full-time second in-house liberated resources staff member for those direct services. I know that the wait list at times in our building would be at our disadvantage, but now we're able to really work through that and get to see students directly in our building, and that's been a huge value added for us when it comes to mental health support opportunities.
At Durkee, as Mike mentioned, and this is funny because we're going backwards, because it started at Baker was the first to implement the Smart Pass, then we implemented it, and Mike's going third. But our biggest thing this year, last year we found a need, we had some issues in the hallways with people being where they needed to be. The paper pass just wasn't working anymore. And this digital system, I'm sure some of you have heard about it, it's just helped us. We fully implemented it right on day one of school. That was buy-in from the staff. Thanks to John Crane, Eric Ziegler, and Lori Turton, our assistant principals at Durkee, for really going in. Because I'll be the first one. I wasn't sure, because we thought about this was like mid-August. We said yes, we bought in, and I was hesitant to just fully jump in. I was saying, hey, let's pilot it. But they, along with our leadership team, they said, no, we're going to put it right in. Our staff will buy in, and they did. It's fully completed today because the pictures from our school pictures have been uploaded into it. So for example, we allow 20 students in a hallway at one time. So if a student is in the hallway, they pop up. And it used to be just their name would pop up, but now they pop up with a picture. So when a student passes by one of our hall monitors, they can ask them their name, and you're getting the real name because there's a person right in front of you also. So that happened actually. It's fully implemented as of today. We also found with the safety, I'm going to go back to the safety of the building. We are also working with Chris. We've gone over and watched the implementation of the threat detection devices because we know they're coming to Durkee. So we're in the beginning steps of thinking about strategizing where do we put those, working with Chris to work through some of the some of the issues that they had, so it's a little bit smoother transition, I will say. It wasn't very, as much as Chris probably doesn't think and his staff doesn't think it was smooth, but the day I was there, considering how some students, it was pretty smooth when they went through there. So I'm hoping for Derby's to be a little bit smoother. We do see the need, obviously, for mental health. One of the things for the safety of students we've implemented is we're going to try to put a segment in bi-weekly. I know it says weekly here, but our Derby News is bi-weekly, is put a segment in. We started that at our last segment of Derby News. Sean McMahon, I felt, did a great job talking about suicide awareness in there, and we're going to plan on doing some sort of little segment. It might not be that long. It might just be a goal for the week, but that's going to be implemented in there. We've also designated one of our bulletin boards all school year to be changed every month to recognize some sort of mental wellness initiative that we have in the building. That was what we implemented here at Derby as of today.
Mike doesn't need that either.
So, in mentioning Liberty Resources, one of the things that by the end of December, we have a Liberty Resources staff member that's out on leave, but during the course of the summer, we added an additional Liberty Resources counselor. So by the end of December, or beginning of January, we'll have 3 full-time Liberty Resource mental health counselors in the building. We've done some rearranging of office space too, so that we've kind of consolidated those resources up at the front of the building, around the corner from the main office. And I know they're excited about their spaces, just excited about being a presence in the building that students hopefully become more and more comfortable with as the years go on. The other thing that's very exciting that we've implemented with the help of Carrie Lamacchia and Jenna Wolkin, I know Danielle's been a big part of the conversation, and Mrs. Turpinning as well at Baker High School, the teen mental health first aid initiative. We have already had our first session. There are 6 sessions that will take place. I think they wrap up maybe in January. And we had our first session last week. So we're already starting to have conversations with students about how they can support one another in appropriate ways, and how they can seek assistance from appropriate staff if they're struggling at any time, with anything. So I think that us making this a priority as a district has really been a positive support for our students at Baker, and will continue to be, I think, in years to come, a positive support for students. Smart Pass, I gotta give kudos to Jen Medwood. She's been our Smart Pass guru at Baker High School. I was kind of in the same boat as TJ. We did do a pilot at the end of the spring, and I really left it up to the building leadership team and Mrs. Medwood. I said, if you think everybody will buy into it and everybody can be on board, and if we implement it, it's got to be 100%. Everybody has to be on board with it. If you think we can pull it off for the fall, then we can do it. I was a little hesitant, and they just said, buckle up, it will be fine. And it's been fine. And I know Maya might feel, hopefully in a little bit different place now than even maybe the first couple of days of school. I know that students had some thoughts about it at first, but at the same time, I would say that my perception is, echoing what TJ mentioned, that from an administrative perspective, from a staff perspective, it really has helped us manage student movement in the hallways. And also, we're empowering students and really eventually parents to be able to have more data and have more reflective conversations about how much instruction that they actually miss during the course of a week. Or, when we're starting to talk about interim, grades and student success, how much instruction is being missed because students are leaving, and why are students leaving classrooms, So I think we're in a good spot with that. It largely at this point seems to be, and especially now that we have photos of every student, I think it helps our hall monitors be able to, to monitor areas of the building and restroom use during periods. So I think we're in a very good place with it. And then, I think we at Baker High School have been extremely honored to be the first building to implement the threat detection systems. We've had a tremendous amount of support from the district, and I think really what we've learned over the last couple of weeks is that when you prioritize safety and security, really anything's possible. And I think that what we've noticed in the last couple of weeks is that staff largely believe in what we're trying to accomplish. Students, I think, really largely believe in what we're trying to accomplish. We've had lots of conversations with parents and community members, whether they are parents of students that are in the building every day or if they're community members at the football game. Now that we've started implementing walk-through scanning devices at the football games. The comments have been, it's a shame that this is where we're at, but I'm really glad that you're doing this. And when you have visitors from other districts as well, really largely and really the only comments that I've heard from visitors from other districts is that they wish that their districts were also taking the same approach. It's difficult. I mean, it's a heavy lift, especially to start. But I will tell you that in week one, day one, we needed about 35 minutes of extra time to get everybody into the building. And as of today, we had everybody in the building by 7:40, which is only 5 minutes, beyond where our regular start time was. So, we appreciate everybody's support. The students have been great, families have been great, the staff has been amazing to get it all done. And we're feeling like we've done very well in the last couple of weeks, and we just appreciate everybody's support because it's a big change. But it's just now, I think more and more, it's just a normal way of us entering our building. And I think that's ultimately the message that will go to all of the district buildings, because this is just going to be how we come to school now.
One of the other areas, just kind of bringing it back, not necessarily from the safety aspect of things, but the social emotional lens that they highlighted. Carrie in the mental wellness community and her team are obviously working a lot with some initiatives that we can talk more about at a later point from that perspective. But we are looking also at other supports and services. So we have a couple Zoom calls with some vendors related to some additional safety management when it comes to use of technology. So the ability to kind of monitor, a student says something in a chat or an email, how do we have more responsive communication and response to situations that might occur through online chatting. But then in addition to that, there's also the ability for some therapy and coaching support. So we know that there's there's a struggle with getting mental health counselors available just because there's a shortage. So there are some almost like a telemedicine type opportunity that we're not making any commitments, but we are investigating other options that we might be able to utilize. And if we are able to get the Recubs grant that was put out there for social emotional, all of that connects. So we're hopeful. Again, it's about providing as many supports as we can for students so that they get ultimately what they need and move forward successfully here in school and outside of school. So those really cover the three goals that each building at the secondary level has prioritized and focused. And I'm not sure if there's additional questions or comments related to what our building principals have presented this evening.
Yeah.
Tanya?
Just a wondering, I know it's still an investigation, and you had mentioned regarding, exploring other safety management tools and resources. In reference to the chat and email monitoring, is that just within the district?
So it would be using district device, district email. So we do have systems in place right now, but in RJ, the tech team gets those alerts, right? But we're relying on our staff that, something comes through at 3 a.m., they're not there, right? So there are systems, if we buy into, certain vendors, that they have 24/7 review of the content. So if something does go through, they have avenues to immediately connect, notify law enforcement, notify district, notify crisis response providers to help student through situation if it's deemed that way based on various protocols. So we are looking at all of that.
Would that be used for more safety threat detection or mental health or both?
It's both, yeah. So I mean, the student puts something out there that they're, potentially writing that they're gonna take their own life or something horrific, it would automatically trigger an alert, which then, could hopefully get the student the support that they need.
And just to clarify, so we have phones on website or on?
So it would be through our system, right? So again, we're looking into this, so there's a lot of different options.
I'm just thinking
but-
about privacy.
Yeah, so everything would be ed law 2D compliant, but if they're utilizing our email system, students have the ability to email. If they're utilizing the Chromebooks. Again, we do have a lot of those safety features in place, but they're reliant on our personnel being available, where this other agency assists us in making sure that there essentially is 24/7 support needed. And there's a way to do this, that's why we're hopeful of this grant, through like a retainer. We can allocate how much we initially want to put toward the tele support and services if we go down that road. Again, we're at the preliminary stages, but we know that it's important.
I just have a question, I guess for any three of you or the administration, and when, more specifically to goal 2, because that's what I was on, with the measures, and how you're measuring your short-term and your long-term goals. One, for example, is demonstrate continuous improvement in examining discipline referral trends. Is there any way for us to get the current data now on discipline trends so that when the goal is hopefully achieved or the process of it, we can see that it's being handled appropriately?
Absolutely. I'll go ahead and start. If anybody has anything, please jump in. In front of me, I am just looking at referral trends from last year compared to this year, which I hate saying these things out loud, but our referrals are down this year. Our attendance is up this year. So those are the things that I frequently am taking a glance at. The public version of what those different totals look like will be published following the end of the first marking period on our district report card as well.
So we do have the data from last year. Once we post the information in November, probably just before the Thanksgiving break, we'll be able to do that comparison look at last year and where we stand currently.
Thank you.
I just want to comment on the way this was presented. It's very easy to read, not only for us, but for the community to just look at it and, look at the short-term objectives, what the action plan is, follow through with the long-term objectives and measures, how you're communicating to staff, and the community, what you want to achieve, and how you want to involve everybody to have a successful strategic plan. So thank you.
Geez, I guess if there's no more questions, it's terrible to excuse them this early, but probably could be. I'm sure you could go home and work on tomorrow's assignment, I guess.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate you having us.
Thank you much for your input. We look forward to seeing you later in the year. But have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Take care.
Tony's not excused though, right? Okay, so if we move, just moving on to our next subject, is the process for the board roundtable and I guess talk about board self-evaluation. So the first question is just, the roundtable was initially put in, as I recall, so that you could have a chance to bring up other questions that are on the agenda. But the intent was to spend 10 or 15 minutes on that. And last time, I think we spent pretty close to an hour on it. So we're just putting this on here, looking for thoughts or suggestions to better manage that so that it's not an hour, it's closer to the 10 or 15 minutes without, I guess, shutting out questions that may need to be posed. I mean, one thought that I know in the past, at one time, this had to be submitted to agenda planning, and it was actually listed for the questions were listed, and the topics were listed. So the floor is open for thoughts or ideas on that, I guess.
I was just gonna make one additional comment, because I did, trying to reflect back on, the process, I did go back to, this was actually first implemented November 2017, and listening to the conversation. And part of the conversation was that it is going to evolve over time and that there's flexibility in making changes. And so, that was part of the dialogue. And, there were board members at the time that were saying, that they didn't want that to ultimately become the focal point of the meetings, and that things could, carry on. And, at some point, you just stop whatever the discussion is and move it forward to, the next meeting if that's what's deemed appropriate. So, I do think, I see it as my responsibility to try to help the board, and I think the self-evaluation piece that the board does with cabinet at some point will help, bring that process and dialogue further together. But I do think, it would be helpful for everyone, I think, if we had, the items listed so that the full board could be, up to speed on what to expect during those conversations that might be a little bit more productive. Or, agree that, somebody could pose a question, but it might be pushed off to a later point of time, whether there's additional information that's provided in a Friday letter or, it's on a future agenda for discussion. But I think it's important to continue, a dialogue and moving forward in a positive way.
So, discussion, ideas?
I'm just gonna say, like, the idea of having it an opportunity to bring up questions or ideas or thoughts, but also I think it's important for it to be on the agenda. So if something kind of starts to build in that time, I think it's a good idea to request the information, ask the question, but maybe the discussion gets tabled to an agenda item. And I think it's only fair for someone who asks a question, especially if we're looking for information, the time to get with the need or with the other board members to research it, as well as I think it's important for the community to have an opportunity to see what we're going to discuss. And I think it's important to have that opportunity to bring stuff up off agenda, but I also think it's important that if it turns into something more than brief, that it's worth a line item on the agenda to following or future meeting, just to remain organized and actually give it the due diligence and focus it deserves. That's just my thoughts.
And it might be too that, depending on the topic, it goes into a work session, because we have more time during the work session to have those healthy discussions, depending on what topic might be of interest.
So Vic, I'd have to agree with Luke. I think we should have it both ways. We should have the items listed on the agenda, and then there's room for if somebody wants to ask some questions and maybe table it to another time.
Well, I agree with bringing forth questions beforehand for the agenda. I also think that sometimes in the spur of the moment or you're having a conversation, something comes up. So I don't want to be, I don't want to say penalized, but say, oh, I have to wait another time to bring that up. So if we could accommodate that or understand the things that do come up during meetings or think of something. I'm not a real proponent of holding to a certain time, though. It's our obligation to make sure that we discuss things, but also, again, things get off course or drug out. Then yes, as leadership or Joe, circle back around and put it on an agenda item for the next time. So.
I was just gonna say quick, I think, like a while ago, Shelley did a good job. She had a couple of things that she wanted to bring up, and she sent the email out so that, everyone was able to get whatever information they needed to be able to discuss it in the proper manner and everything. So I think that kind of goes along with what Lou was saying as well.
I like the idea of putting it on the agenda, so, we wanted to investigate it ourselves or come up with questions. Sometimes we're not going to answer everything, but at least we have the opportunity to think about it so that I know myself, we brought up topics and I just haven't been prepared to talk about it. So I think this way it's easy for all of us to look at and for the community to know what we're discussing.
So if I'm understanding, then it seems like there's a consensus to, what you do is you submit this through email, or, well, I guess it'd have to be email, so the board and Joe would see it, to somebody, and it would be discussed in agenda planning, planning for the roundtable, and it would be listed on the roundtable. Is that fair, everybody?
So would that mean everything would have to be in by that Wednesday before agenda planning on Thursday?
The Thursday.
If there was a.
It would be nice, yeah, if everything could be submitted that Wednesday by the close of business, so that Thursday, and again, certainly things might come up, but at least the items that are listed for discussion that come up ahead of time, they're there. Questions might come up during the meeting, we want people to ask questions, we just might not have the answers that you might be looking for, and that might force us to say that we'll follow up in a Friday communication, or if it's a more complex conversation, it would then be on the board roundtable or just a regular meeting discussion in a future meeting. So if we could all agree to that, it would help to make sure everything's, and the third board member and the board leadership can have that dialogue and we're all on the same page to make sure we're not missing something that a board member asks.
Okay, sounds like Tanya.
So, I just want to be clear, so I'm hearing, so the expectation would be prior to agenda board planning on Wednesday, just clarifying. We would bring topics we'd like to discuss in roundtable. Now, if something were to come up and transpire after that, would there be a block of time, if limited, that these are topics I'd like to put in, at least in the record, for discussion at a later time? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I don't, yeah, you could always do it, and if time allows, we could do it.
No, understood. Just with the opportunity to
Yeah.
discuss it at a
Oh,
later
yeah.
time. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so I guess we're set on that one. Then the next one, we talked a little bit, I think, early on, that in the past, we've always done one or two board self-evaluations. And we had a discussion at agenda planning actually about should we plan to do one? And we could easily do that after our November business meeting. So I guess want to throw that out there. We could do it, and you can do it two ways. You can, create a questionnaire that each board member fills out, and probably would do that regardless of, so you can do, each board member have some feedback. But then sometimes it's done just as a group, and sometimes you bring in a facilitator that can help you walk through that. And I think just the expression we had in agenda planning was, it might be nice to try bringing in a facilitator to do that. And they will probably have a process they want to go through. So, want to throw that out, what thoughts do you have about doing that at this point, and then probably doing it at a later point in the year, or not?
So Nick, just let me understand, if we bring in a facilitator or have a retreat, I'm assuming we're a retreat too, like, what would they would help gear us towards what type of questions that we're supposed to be asking ourselves? Will it be more of a retreat? I'm kind of unsure as to what the process would be or what they would actually be doing.
What they're doing is they're trying to guide you as to how to work as a team, and if you have any internal disagreements about the process, try to have you discuss that. But really, I think it's more of a discussion than anything, and the facilitator, what the facilitator can do is try to use their discussion methods and their training to see that you move forward to a resolution if there's open questions or two people disagree on a certain topic.
Okay, understood, thanks. That was just a little bit different than creating an assessment, like rating ourselves, how we're doing as board members as opposed to our interactions and working as board members. So I just wanted, but I'm totally in favor of that, yes.
So I think just to expand on the conversation, it was about, and Tommy, feel free to chime in too. So I think part of the there's two approaches. You can use the NISBA. I think the board in the past has used the NISBA self-evaluation. You could start with that self-evaluation, everyone completes that, and then that information helps guide the trainer in working through group norms, or you could go through a training, do the self-evaluation. So there's different approaches, and I think that's where we're trying to get a sense of what the board would like so that we can schedule this if that's what's desired. But ultimately, it is about bringing cohesive functionality to the board. Given there's likely to be nobody expects everybody to always agree. How do we move forward, and how do you stay productive and highly efficient as a board?
But I think you often may have a facilitator may ask you to write down, what do you think is going well? What do you think could use improvement? Something like that's what I was trying to do.
Now, I think bringing in a facilitator would be an excellent opportunity for all of us, just to learn and to have a better understanding to make us be as productive as we can as board members. And whether we do an assessment before or during or after, with whomever may be brought in, I would think that's good too. We need to see what our norms are, where we should be going, where we currently are, and where we should go.
So I think to your point, I think those conversations and full feedback about how the board has been tracking, particularly in the last two sessions. And I think this sort of, generated a greater conversation about how as a board we're supposed to function. Is it ideal to do a self-evaluation at the beginning of the school year? Ideally, it would have been great to do it at a retreat over the summer. I think the board and the new leadership, we have to have a candid conversation about how we want to function. And that means investing time, energy, to come together to build our capacity in a variety of different topics, to have some awareness so we can ask, the critical questions to help support the district. And the other piece is how do we interact as a group? Because consistently there's been issues. And that's okay. And the point is that there's, awareness that there's some things that need to change, especially about, how we've shifted from the previous years and how we're operating moving forward. And I think it's a good move. Did it win the game? Yeah. I mean, the reality is we also did establish our own goals last year. So there's practices, once again, as a board, what do we need to function so we can support the district and the superintendent? And we don't have those things in place, then we're not doing our jobs as we are required to do. So I think the conversation conversation was bringing an outside facilitator who, you know, is unbiased about, and then coming in and just facilitating conversations. You know, we could talk about norms, as we discussed, we could talk about values in the context of, yes, we have a care of duty and loyalty and responsibility to the mission and vision. We also have a responsibility within ourselves to make sure we're doing what we're supposed to support the district, because we can't do that if we're dysfunctional. And so I think the conversation is bringing in outside facilitator. We can, you know, facilitate, so we're able to establish those things internally, so we're able to operate at some level of efficiency and effectiveness.
I totally agree, and I would think maybe going forward in years, that's just something that's on, well, would be consistently done in the summertime or the very beginning of the school year. The board members are always changing. Personalities are different, changing. And to Tanya's point, and I say all the time, it's okay to agree to disagree, and we have to be respectful of each other, and everybody brings certain things to the table, and why certain people ask certain questions. And again, I just think having that interaction with the facilitator, coming together, is only going to set us up for success.
And I think in a conversation, I think that, I think, you know, talking to Mr. Hampton and Mr. Jenkins, you know, let's at least start somewhere. And, you know, and see where this goes and builds. So if it's just having a conversation about, hey, let's talk about how we need to function and how we engage in critical conversations, even uncomfortable conversations, because we're not always going to agree. There's also a right way and a wrong way. But at the same time, we have to be okay with the critical conversations and the questions, even regardless of how they're delivered. We have an obligation as a board to ask critical questions, and they're not there to be punitive or anything like that. The purpose is there because we have a responsibility to hold people accountable. And if we're not asking that, it may not be the intent, but we have to do that.
Yeah, just to the other point, typically, or every year I've served on the board, we do this about mid-year. It's hard to do it first thing in the summer when you have 2 or 3 new board members, because nobody knows how that interaction is going to start to play out. You don't have a feel yet. So that's typically, so usually I think, quite frankly, we did this in January. But I think it's the sooner the better, and why you can do a couple. But that's the reason the summer would be harder to do it.
I think there's a way to go, maybe to try to bring in, you know, just like you did with the new board members, the new board member training, maybe early in August as a part of the goal retreat, you know, we do have a conversation about team building and communication and all of that. I think that can easily be done, but maybe the self-evaluation portion falls mid-year once you've established some interactions with team.
And
That's
that's
a
the
good
beginning of the
point.
year, just the values, and just some norms that collectively review, what do we know about each other, what are our superpowers, you know, what do we bring? We all bring some expertise that brings a level of insight and perspective. And then, as you mentioned after that, you know, how do we move forward with the goal setting, things like that.
So do you want me to try to schedule, like, so we identified, just looking at briefly at our calendars and agenda planning, like when is the best time to do this? You know, if you want to stick to a Monday, I don't even know if if you want to use NISBA, like we did with the prior board training that we did recently. You can certainly reach out, that's your member organization.
There's some really good folks in the region. I could send some names for you to consider as a board. There's some really great people we've met through the Gifford Foundation that have done, you know, they're tied to the community and they're quite knowledgeable, and they can kind of know instead of, you know, I'll send some names, I can do that. Okay.
Isn't there something in the super eval that has like a board evaluation in it too?
Yes. So that piece, I guess that's I was going to get to. Do you want to do the training interaction first before doing the self-evaluation? Because it sounds like that's, I mean, if we're following similar to what we've done in the past.
So
It's been
what
mid-year.
we could do, I think we had a little bit of this discussion, Jim, like, was that if we had a NISBA person in, they could take us through super eval a little bit
As well, yeah.
and help us how to use and use that self-eval tool. But we still like them to play a facilitator role for discussions and stuff, I think, right? Wouldn't that kind of-
Can we do it all at once?
Yeah.
And then later in the year, we could do something totally outside of it.
Yeah, I think we have to find a tool that we're gonna use. And, you know, part of that is learning the tool, and the other piece is learning about each other and learning how we function. Do we necessarily need NISBA? I mean, we have those resources, it's great. Sometimes it's nice to get someone who's not part of NISBA for a different perspective, just for consideration.
Yeah, no, and we probably at this point, if we do something soon, we can do both, right? One now, one later.
Or you could tie it in where, depending on how long, let's just say you pick a date and it's a 2-hour, 3-hour long thing, and the first portion could be with a NISBA person or vice versa. You know, we have that flexibility based on, you know, what names come forward. So if you want to email the full board, anybody who has ideas, certainly the board leadership, we can work together to try to set something up. As far as dates, I was looking at the calendar. The date in November that's not being utilized right now for some other type of district event is the Monday after the Thanksgiving holiday. It's November 27th. The 13th, there is, of November, there's the Funding the Future work that evening, which at least the cabinet would be kind of tied up with that. I know there are a few board members that were interested in attending a few of those things, but it can also be on a different day of the week. It's really based around.
I'm available the 27th, and I don't know what other board members do, but I typically try to keep, even if it's not a Monday, maybe my Monday's open in case. So I'm not sure if everyone else does that, but I'm fine for the 27th.
Is there any major objection with the 27th? Okay.
Is it? Yeah, because I think it is important that we're.
Yeah. What about Tuesday that week?
And I
Tuesday
don't
the
know,
28th?
is Andy still on too, so he can, and
Yeah.
Ron, so they can interject too.
Yep, we're still here. Yeah, still here.
Or Tuesday or Wednesday of that week?
That Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for me.
You want
It's that one
Okay.
stretch that month.
So there's, I mean, I don't know how people feel about Thursdays. The 30th?
Thursday's fine.
30th is fine for you.
Well, I would assume we try to schedule it at like 5. Okay. Andrew and Don, would Thursday the 30th work?
Can I call him? No, I'll be here.
I think it's
I
important.
can do it.
Thursday, 30th works for me.
Okay. Wayne? Looking right now. I think we're good. Okay.
Yeah, I assume so. Let's just look at the SU basketball schedule.
Oh, shoot. Well, it's preseason.
Very critical.
Not at the 30th.
Is that?
No, you're talking November 30th?
November 30th.
We could always pull the game up on the
Those
screen here,
games
right?
count, I think.
I know they count, but is it a big name one?
I don't know, they have to.
There isn't a game.
Oh,
I
thank
checked
you.
my calendar, my
Thank you.
husband, it's mom for me.
Don, are you okay with the 30th?
I am totally fine with the 30th.
Okay, so we will tentatively block out November 30th at 5 o'clock for a board retreat and team review. And we will hope that if people have ideas or names of potential PD folks, we can send them to us, board cabinet, or board leadership and myself, and then we'll work together to try to coordinate a schedule with either NISBA or these other individuals. Sound like a plan? Okay, perfect. And with that,
into the work session then. So resolved that the October 16th, 2023 Board of Education work session be adjourned. We don't even have to vote on it, do we?
No, you just have to say it.
Okay, we're adjourned.
All right, so we'll close out. Andrew and John, are you gonna be on your way here?